First contact fever. The crystalline spires of Outpost Lumina glittered against the backdrop of twin moons, their silvery light casting long shadows across the observation deck. Nissa Valeri adjusted her research equipment, her delicate blue fingers moving with practiced precision over the scanner controls. As the lead xenobiologist of the Cerulean Science Division, she'd spent 3 cycles on this remote station studying stellar phenomena, not entertaining unexpected visitors. Incoming shuttle, identification code Earth Diplomatic 7, announced the station's AI, its melodic voice echoing through the otherwise silent laboratory. Nissa's antennae twitched with surprise. Earth Diplomatic, there's nothing scheduled from the human sector. She quickly smoothed down her iridescent uniform, the fabric adjusting to her body's slight temperature fluctuation, a telltale sign of her nervousness that she hoped wouldn't be noticeable to human eyes. Relations between Ceruleans and humans remained cordial but distant, their biological differences making extended contact uncomfortable for her species. The docking bay doors whispered open, revealing a human male whose appearance immediately captured Nissa's attention. Unlike the stiff military personnel she occasionally encountered, this human moved with an easy grace. His warm brown skin contrasted with the silver gray of his diplomatic uniform, and his dark eyes held intelligence that made her antennae quiver slightly. "Dr. Valeri," he said, his voice deeper than most Cerulean males, "I'm Damien Torres, Special Envoy from Earth Alliance. I apologize for the unannounced arrival." Nissa tilted her head, the traditional Cerulean greeting. "Outpost Lumina welcomes you, Envoy Torres, though we are surprised by your presence." His smile revealed white teeth, a feature that Ceruleans found oddly fascinating about humans. "That makes 2 of us. My ship detected unusual energy patterns near your station. Given our treaty obligations, I was dispatched to investigate." Energy patterns? Nissa's scientific curiosity immediately overcame her social discomfort. "We've been tracking stellar anomalies in this sector, but nothing that should concern Earth Alliance." Damien's expression shifted to one of genuine interest. "Perhaps you could show me your findings. My background is in astrophysics before I joined diplomatic service." As they walked through the curved corridors of the station, Nissa became increasingly aware of the human's proximity. Ceruleans normally maintained significant personal space, their sensitive skin capable of detecting bioelectric fields of other beings. Damien's field was unlike anything she'd experienced, strong, rhythmic, and strangely compelling. "Your research station is remarkable," Damien commented, studying the organic architecture that characterized Cerulean design. "We have nothing like this in human space." "It grows rather than being built," Nissa explained, professional pride momentarily overriding her awareness of him. "The outer shell is cultivated from stellar algae that we've modified to create sustainable habitats." In the main laboratory, she displayed her research on the holographic interface. Stellar data formed intricate patterns above the console, stars and energy flows dancing like luminescent organisms. "There," Damien pointed, his hand passing close to hers. "That anomaly, it's similar to what my ship detected." Nissa felt a strange tingling where his arm had almost brushed hers. "The phenomenon appeared 3 standard weeks ago. We've been monitoring its growth." "Growth?" Damien leaned closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. "Energy patterns don't typically grow." "This one does," Nissa replied, trying to ignore the unusual warmth radiating from his body. Humans operated at a higher temperature than Ceruleans, a fact she knew academically but was experiencing personally for the first time. Hours passed as they analyzed the data together, their initial formality gradually giving way to scientific camaraderie. Nissa found herself laughing at Damien's observations, something she rarely did with her own kind. Cerulean society valued composure and restraint. This easy exchange felt almost forbidden in its informality. "You should rest," she finally said, noticing the subtle signs of human fatigue in his posture. "We have guest quarters prepared for visitors, though we rarely receive any this far from established routes." In the small dining area, they shared a meal, she with her nutrient solution, he with synthesized human food. The station's other 3 Cerulean researchers had already retired for their regeneration cycle, leaving them alone. "Tell me about Earth," Nissa said, her scientific curiosity extending beyond stellar phenomena to the enigma sitting across from her. We receive transmissions, but they reveal little about what it's truly like. Damien's expression softened. Earth is contradictory, beautiful and damaged, chaotic and orderly. His eyes met hers. Not unlike this region of space you're studying. And humans, are they all like you? The question escaped before she could apply her usual filter. His laugh sent an unexpected ripple through her sensory receptors. Hardly, we're as diverse as the stars out there. He paused, studying her with undisguised interest. What about Ceruleans? Are they all as dedicated as you? The words seemed to carry additional meaning she couldn't decipher. We value knowledge and harmony. My dedication is typical. But your passion isn't, Damien said quietly. I've met other Cerulean scientists. They don't light up when they discuss their research the way you do. Nyssa felt her skin flush slightly darker blue, a reaction she couldn't control. Among her people, such a visible emotional response would be considered improper, especially with an off-worlder. You should see your home world, she said, changing the subject. The bioluminescent forests of Cerulean Prime make these station lights seem dim by comparison. I'd like that, he replied, his gaze lingering on her face. Perhaps you could be my guide someday. The notion was absurd, and yet Nyssa found herself imagining walking with Damien beneath the pulsing azure canopies of her home world. The thought sparked something unfamiliar within her biology, a response she couldn't categorize. As she showed him to the guest quarters, their hands accidentally brushed. The contact sent an electric sensation up her arm, making her antennae stand fully erect, an embarrassingly obvious physiological response among her kind. I apologize, she said quickly, stepping back. For what? Damien asked, his voice lower than before. Ceruleans don't touch casually, she explained, struggling to maintain her scientific detachment. Our skin contains heightened sensory receptors. Is it unpleasant? His question held genuine concern. No, she admitted, the truth surprising her, just intense. Something shifted in his expression. Nyssa, I'm not here just about energy anomalies. The truth is, Earth Alliance has been monitoring communications suggesting that certain factions within both our governments are working to undermine the peace. The sudden change in topic disoriented her. What factions? What communications? There are those who believe our species should remain permanently separated, he explained. They spread fears about biological incompatibility, claiming proximity between humans and Ceruleans leads to disease. That's scientifically unfounded, Nyssa replied immediately. While our physiologies are different, there's no evidence of pathogenic transfer between our species. Exactly, Damien smiled, his relief evident. I was hoping a scientist of your caliber would confirm that. Their conversation continued late into the station's artificial night, moving from politics to personal philosophies. With each passing hour, Nyssa felt protocol and caution eroding, replaced by a connection that transcended species differences. When Damien reached out tentatively to touch her hand again, she didn't pull away. The sensation was overwhelming, both frightening and exhilarating. The rumors, she whispered, her voice unsteady, about biological incompatibility. There are similar ones among my people. Stories passed down about ancient contacts that led to complications. Do you believe them? Damien asked, his fingers intertwining with hers. I believe in evidence, she replied, the scientist in her still asserting itself even as her body responded to his touch in ways she'd never experienced. And there is no evidence. Later, as the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, she would question her judgment, her training, her duty. But in that moment, as Damien's lips met hers, warm against her cool blue skin, Nyssa thought only of discovery, of exploration, of mysteries her scientific instruments could never measure. Neither of them noticed the subtle change beginning beneath the surface of her skin, where human biochemistry met Cerulean biology, setting in motion a reaction that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their species' compatibility. Deadly first contact. The Grand Summit space station gleamed like a jewel against the velvet backdrop of space, its massive crystalline dome catching the light of the nearby binary stars. Inside, representatives from 17 galactic civilizations mingled in uneasy diplomacy. It was humanity's first major interstellar conference since the Proxima incident, and tension hung in the air like invisible smoke. Jade Nakamura adjusted the collar of her formal diplomatic uniform, the silver trim catching the light as she scanned the grand reception hall. As Earth's senior intelligence officer assigned to this mission, she wasn't just here to make small talk. Director Winters had been explicit: identify potential threats, forge useful alliances, and above all, protect Earth's interests. Nervous, Commander Nakamura. The voice came from behind her, deep and resonant. Jade turned to face Admiral Blackwood, her direct superior and head of the Earth delegation. His weathered face showed the strain of 3 days of intense negotiations. "Cautious, sir," she replied with a small smile. "The Zintari representatives are being particularly evasive about their military capabilities." Blackwood nodded grimly. "Keep your eyes open tonight. The Arcturus Coalition is pushing for immediate ratification of the treaty. I don't trust their hurry." As Blackwood moved away to greet a group of blue-skinned Fedran diplomats, Jade continued her survey of the room. That's when she first noticed the stranger. The alien stood alone by the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Unlike the other delegates who clustered in species-specific groups, this one seemed deliberately isolated. Tall and slender, with skin the color of burnished copper that seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence. Flowing robes of deep emerald draped over a distinctly feminine form. But it was the eyes that caught Jade's attention, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle on a face that was both alien and strikingly beautiful, all shimmering like liquid gold. As if sensing Jade's scrutiny, the alien turned, those triadic eyes locking onto hers across the crowded room. The connection was immediate and strangely electric. Without conscious decision, Jade found herself moving toward the viewport. "I don't believe we've been introduced," Jade said, extending her hand in the universal greeting adopted for the summit. "Commander Jade Nakamura, Earth Diplomatic Corps." The alien regarded Jade's hand for a moment before extending her own 6-fingered hand in return. The touch was warm, almost hot, and sent an unexpected tingle up Jade's arm. "I am Evora, 3rd Sentinel of the Sarene Collective," the alien replied, her voice like warm honey with an undertone of chimes. "This is your first interstellar conference, yes?" Jade raised an eyebrow. "Is it that obvious?" "Your species carries curiosity like a scent," Evora said, her central eye seeming to dilate slightly. "The others find it disconcerting. I find it refreshing." Over the next hour, Jade found herself engaged in the most fascinating conversation of her career. Evora spoke of worlds Jade had never heard of, civilizations that had risen and fallen long before humans had invented the wheel. Yet despite her obvious age and wisdom, Evora seemed genuinely interested in Earth, asking questions about everything from ocean tides to human music. "Your delegation seems concerned about the treaty," Evora observed as they shared a drink of iridescent blue liquid that Jade found pleasantly warming. "We're cautious," Jade admitted. "Earth is still recovering from the Proxima incident. Opening our borders fully to interstellar trade and migration represents significant risk." "And significant opportunity," Evora countered, her robes shifting like liquid as she moved closer. "Some exchanges between species can be transformative." The way she said it, with those golden eyes fixed on Jade's face, sent a ripple of something primitive and undeniable through Jade's body. She had been briefed on the possibility of xenosexual attraction. It was covered in the standard diplomatic training. But experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. "Commander Nakamura," the sharp voice of Director Winters cut through Jade's thoughts. The intelligence director approached, his gaze cold as he assessed Evora. "I need to brief you on tomorrow's security protocols." "Of course, Director," Jade responded professionally, though she felt an unexpected flash of resentment at the interruption. "Until tomorrow, perhaps," Evora suggested, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "I am hosting a small gathering in my quarters after the main sessions, something less formal than this affair." Before Jade could respond, Evora melted into the crowd with fluid grace, leaving behind a faint trace of something like cinnamon in the air. "Be careful, Commander," Winters warned in a low voice. "The Sarene rarely engage directly with humans. If she's showing interest, she has an agenda." "With all due respect, sir, making connections is my job," Jade replied, watching Evora's retreating form. "Your job is intelligence gathering, not fraternization," Winters snapped. The Sarin were suspiciously neutral during the Proxima incident. They watched while colonists died. Jade nodded, but something inside her had already decided. She would attend Evora's gathering. If the Sarin had ulterior motives, better to discover them directly. The next day passed in a blur of negotiations and strategy sessions. The Earth delegation was pushing back against provisions that would allow unrestricted access to Sol system by non-human vessels. The Arcturus Coalition, led by the aggressive Vex Imperium, accused Earth of xenophobic protectionism. By the time Jade slipped away to Evora's quarters, her nerves were frayed from hours of diplomatic tension. She had told herself she was attending purely for intelligence purposes, but the flutter in her stomach as she approached the ornate doorway told a different story. Evora's quarters were a revelation, a lush, garden-like space with plants that seemed to glow from within, casting the room in soft, shifting light. Only 3 other guests were present, none human, all engaged in quiet conversation around what appeared to be a small fountain of silver liquid. "You came?" Evora appeared at Jade's side, now dressed in simpler attire that revealed more of her luminescent copper skin. Up close, Jade could see intricate patterns that seemed to shift beneath the surface, like circuitry made of light. "I was intrigued by your invitation," Jade replied honestly. "By the invitation or the inviter?" Evora's central eye narrowed slightly in what Jade was beginning to recognize as amusement. The evening unfolded in a haze of exotic refreshments, music that seemed to emanate from the plants themselves, and conversation that delved deeper than diplomatic pleasantries. The other guests departed one by one, until Jade found herself alone with Evora, seated on cushions beside the strange fountain. "Your species fascinates me," Evora said, reaching out to trace a finger lightly along Jade's jawline. "So brief and bright, like supernovas in slow motion." "We prefer to think of ourselves as resilient," Jade replied, her voice husky as she fought to maintain professional composure despite the electric sensation of Evora's touch. "Is that why you isolate yourselves? Fear that association with other species will somehow diminish that resilience?" The question hit closer to the core of Earth's diplomatic position than Jade was comfortable acknowledging. "We're cautious because we've been hurt before. Trust requires time." "Time," Evora echoed, her 3 eyes focusing on Jade with an intensity that seemed to pierce through all pretense. "My species measures time differently than yours. What you consider a lifetime, we see as a moment, precious because of its brevity." Before Jade could respond, Evora leaned forward, bringing her face close enough that Jade could feel her warmth. "Would you share such a moment with me, Jade Nakamura of Earth?" All training, all professional caution dissolved in the heat of that question. Jade found herself nodding, and then Evora's lips, warmer than human, with a taste like spiced honey, were pressed against hers. What followed was a night of passion unlike anything in Jade's experience. Evora's body was both familiar and alien, curves and hollows that responded to touch in unexpected ways, skin that seemed to glow brighter with arousal, releasing patterns of light that danced across the walls. The connection transcended physical pleasure, seeming to reach into some deeper level of consciousness where thoughts and sensations blurred together. When Jade finally drifted to sleep, wrapped in Evora's surprisingly strong arms, her last coherent thought was that no intelligence briefing could have prepared her for this. She awoke to pain, a burning, itching sensation across her shoulder and chest. Evora was gone, a handwritten note on strange, fibrous paper left on the pillow. "Called to emergency session. Return soon." Jade sat up, her head swimming slightly, and looked down at herself. What she saw sent ice through her veins. Across her pale skin, dark purple lines were spreading like cracks in glass, radiating outward from points of contact where Evora had touched her most intimately. "What the hell?" she whispered, touching one of the lines. It burned beneath her fingertips, the pain intensifying as the marking seemed to pulse. With growing horror, Jade realized that whatever was happening to her skin, it was spreading before her eyes.